Hello and welcome to a new series of Kerbal space program that I'm calling Escaping Kerbin. Um, we are going to be doing a career mode, and the ultimate goal is to escape Kerbin and visit Duna and Eve and potentially other planets. I've never been outside. I've been to Duna once with a probe, but it was in sandbox mode, and I want to attempt it for real. So I'm making the Legion Science Center, and we are going to pick this little flag right there with the orbits. It's going to be a normal mode. The only thing I'm changing is that crew respawns are going to be turned off. So if people die, they die. And RemoteTech, we're just going with standard settings. So, as I said, RemoteTech is one of the mods that we're going to be using. It's going to be a big part of it. Makes satellites a lot more important, and you need to have a network. The other mod that we're going to be using that's going to be important in the beginning is we're using probes before manned, or probes first. All the names of the mods are going to be in the description below. So here we're just building our first little science contract. For some reason, the contracts aren't showing up yet, so I'm just trying to kill some time until they do. Here you go. We got one at least, is to leave the launch pad, do some science. So first we're going to just actually do some science and recover the vessel. Just as an easy way, because we don't have access to parachutes. So this vessel is going to be destroyed upon impact. So the mystery goo, we can at least collect the science from the launch pad. So we go ahead and unlock that. Our ultimate goal is to get the parachute so we can actually recover our vessel, not just for the science, but for the funds as well. So that little test showed me that I only had enough battery to transmit science for one. That's why I added the second battery. So go ahead and lift off and transmit everything that I can, even the ones that would give me more science if I recovered it, because I just simply can't recover it. We can always get that science later. So for now, I'm just shooting forward. I can't do the last target scanning because I don't have any electricity. And right about here, I started getting nervous. I thought I was going to destroy my launch pad. But thankfully, the wind shifted us over. So yeah, let's go ahead and bring in an explosion here. And I'm speeding this up a lot, but I waited forever for this probe to stop rolling. And I couldn't do anything about the time warp because it was going on land. But yeah, so I sustained a lot of science there, so I go ahead and unlock sustainability. And this gives me a different probe core, a flatter one, so I can put a parachute right on top. So yeah, so we're going again with the same SRB, but this time we're going to put a little decoupler and a structural bit, so that way our science can be relegated to one piece and not attached to the booster, and we can just drop that weight. So we go ahead and make the same thing, just a bilateral set of science experiments, but this time we had the bathymetry. So the goal is to aim towards the ocean, so we make a nice easy turn. No fins on this. This is just early stage rocketry. I'm trying to keep the cost down as much as possible, and since we're not planning on going very high in the atmosphere, there's not really a need for fins, and even spinning out is not a problem, because even if we land on the shore, that's still a biome that we haven't explored yet, so I'm not too worried about where this lands. One of the mods, as you can see, I'm scrolling down on the right, I'm trying to find, I had installed, but for some reason it's not showing up, is trajectories, and that's going to be one that I'm going to try to fix by the next episode. Very nice, very handy, shows you where you land. So yeah, the booster ran out, so I just go ahead and decoupled it to lighten my load and try to make to the ocean, and it seems here that I'm going to make it, so I go ahead and hit the chutes. course, just stable out, and yep, we're gonna make it right into the splashdown. So early on, I'm gonna be doing a lot of the same stuff that you'll see, a lot of other YouTubers do. Later on in mid-game, what we're gonna be planning on doing is setting up a base on Minmus. And from there, we're going to set up a mining operation where we extract metal ore and use the Extraplanetary Launchpads mod to create and launch our vessels out to Duna. By making them on Minmus, we can make larger vessels that are much more efficient, since they only have to take off from Minmus's low gravity instead of Kerbin's atmosphere. That you just saw there was a probe control room mod. We will probably not be using that. You can see that in my IVA series on the same channel, where we do a lot of stuff internally, first-person view, but there's a glitch with the bathymetry that sometimes when you try to run the report, it brings you into that. Alright, so now that we're gonna go in here, we're just gonna do a little test contract, 2 of them. Get the decoupler and the booster, but of course I forget freaking communications. I'd like to keep a running tally of how many times that happens. At least 3 times in this episode. So yeah, so easy money right there. Both of them need to be tested, landed at the launch pad. Just a tip for people, if you're playing this and you have a booster or an engine that's tested on the launch pad, you can just revert its thrust down to 0, and it won't leave the launch pad, but the test conditions will be met. Therefore, you don't have to actually launch into the air and use up fuel and have to have parachutes to bring it down. You literally get all of your money back from it because it doesn't go anywhere. So yeah, so now that I have more science, because that's the name of the game in the beginning, just see how much science you can pack onto this thing, how many different parts. I took this radial decoupler mission so that way I can get earlier access to it, because I'm going to try to get pretty high here. And at the last minute I put a camera on there. I don't end up using it, so it basically is just a waste of money. But I didn't think I thought I could, I didn't think of that at the time, because I thought that I could get a good couple shots of it lifting off the launch pad. But as you see, I forgot the antenna again, so I had to recover the vehicle. So decided to do a little bit of science beforehand and just get a quick unlock of the rocketry node. So now we have access to Terriers, which are going to be crucial for orbiting. So now I just need to strip off a few parts to make sure that I hit my limit. And let's get going. I didn't pay attention to my thrust to weight ratio in the thing, so I have to go ahead and activate the liquid fuel engine to get it lifted off. So it's a very important thing. MechJeb and Kerbal Engineering Redux are also going to be big players in this. I think they're actually requirements for the game. I think they're just standard mods that everyone should have. But, again, the mods will be description. So this is not going to reach upper space like I thought it was. So I decided to just kick those off before it do any more damage. And just drop the parachute and bring myself home early. I will be landing in a different biome. Like I said in the last launch, I'm going to be landing in a different biome, so I'm not too worried about where I land. And destroys the engine, some of the wings, but of course it lands pretty stably, so I get to do some tasty science. Go ahead and recover. I said recover. There we go. And yeah, so now I got 53 science, so I can go ahead and look at different things to unlock. I go ahead and choose the general construction because it gives me access to both the service bay and the fairings. So go ahead and get that. Put a service bay, which is much cleaner, much nicer. And this is kind of going to be my standard service bay. You're going to see this set up a lot. Just 2 experiments on each side. 2 of each experiments on each side. And just tucked nicely in there with some batteries or potentially a probe core sometimes. Probe cores are going to be big because we use RemoteTech. One of the major components of it is that it has a pretty awesome flight computer. But of course you need a probe core in order to access that. But the flight computer is a way of managing your maneuvers automatically. Mostly automatically and mostly precisely. And it's going to be very important, especially for probes, because when they're not in communication with the satellite network, they're not going to have any control. So we can plan for a time when the satellite doesn't have any control, plan these maneuvers in, and they'll be executed on time even if the satellite is not connected. So yeah, so just another standard launch. I keep telling myself we're going to take a direct descent. We're just going to go straight up, not be efficient at all. But I don't have too much delta V, and I was kind of hoping to maximize it a little bit. I'm still in the mindset of my previous playthrough where I could just, turn and point and everything will be fine. I don't even have any wings on this thing. And that quickly becomes apparent now. So once again, I start spinning out a little bit. If this is you and this is your rocket, wings are a very important factor. Control surfaces, some sort of turning. It'll help you maintain control of your rocket, or your vessel, I should say. So yeah, so we decided to abandon the eastward turn and just go with where our momentum was taking us. And so I go ahead and do a flip, and I kill the engine, and I come back. Once again, I'm just trying to go with it and ride it as best I can. I do some science since I'm now in a new zone. You'll notice 2 things, again, from mods. I have the apoapsis height and all the information up there at the top. That is from MechJeb. That gives me access to that. I also am using the mod MechJeb for all, so it just puts the engineering chip on the craft automatically, so the information comes up. One thing it does do that I'm not entirely happy about, but so maybe we'll figure out something else, but it does give me access to all the maneuver nodes, so I can point normal and anti-normal and radial out and all that stuff right from the beginning. So that's why you'll see those things there as well. The other thing that we have is X Science, that on the left it points out the science that we can do in any given biome. I like it because this game has a lot of micromanaging, and just having to spin the camera around and click on every individual thing is and will eventually become too much for the kind of game that I'm going for. So I just like to have this this mod here that'll just let me know, oh, I'm in a new biome, so now it's time to do science. And so yeah, so we go ahead and we aim for high space here. We're aiming to get the materials bay study up there, and that will yield us a lot. So we go ahead and just log everything. And that's our first of 2 sets. So that was low space, actually, not high space. We haven't quite made it yet. So I burn up a little bit. And as you see, it pops in again. And since we have the second set of experiments, we can do it there as well. And then we do the materials bay, go ahead and close it, and then we're going to go ahead and get ourselves ready for descent. Still have plenty of electric charge, because we didn't transmit any of this, so we didn't use up the battery using the communications, so we'll be fine with that. But of course we're using RemoteTech, so if you notice up in the top left, you'll see that it says no connection, and I have not figured that out yet. I'm just waiting for us to re-enter the atmosphere, and then I'm going to fire the engine to slow my descent. But it's right here when I find out that I'm not able to. I have no connection because I have no satellite network, and I'm not in control of the craft because I don't have a site connection to the KSC. So this thing is just coming down, and it's coming down fast. I armed the parachute using the probe command room, which honestly I don't think I should have been able to. That was a little bit cheaty, but it pays me back in the end because it arms my parachute while I'm still on fire, and of course it burns up and rips up and destroys. And there goes our first mission. In this series, there's going to be some failures. I'm going to avoid reverting as much as possible. I might do a revert now and there, but for the most part, I'm going to try to live with my failures. That was a little contract that we did just to get some quick money and clear it out so we can... we were going to grab 2 new ones, but then I decided to upgrade the building so that way I can just grab a bunch of them and take the advances and use that towards more rocketry. So I'm picking up a bunch of contracts that I feel that I can do, trying to avoid some that I feel like won't be worth the cost. But first I want to send a satellite up there. I want to get something into orbit. I want to be able to have communications on it and enough battery to live through it so I can at least get a start for my network. So here I'm making what will be known as the Bumblebee, because I feel like the final stage looks a little bit like a Bumblebee with a big ol' booster at the back. And so just a standard rocket. I just need to figure out how much delta V I need to give it and make sure that I have enough. 3,700 is what it takes to get into orbit. You can do it with a little bit less, but that requires basically a very efficient takeoff. 3,700 is also kind of requiring a very efficient takeoff, but it has a little bit more room, I've noticed. I think I've been able to get it on like 3,580, I believe. So yeah, and so here is take 3 of forgetting to put communication on it to connect it, and then here I decide to throw a heat shield and parachutes on it, just on the off chance that I decide that I want to bring it back. But of course I go over my part limit, so I just take those back off. I also drop it down to 3 fins. So now I'm going to be aiming for a polar orbit. I'm going to be going north. The reason why I want to go polar first is because I'm already going to be making a satellite network of 3 that are going equatorial. So I want to have something for them to connect to just in an emergency if they can. And I feel that a polar orbit is better for the first one. I don't know for certain. I am no rocket scientist. But that's just what's kind of helped me with this and with RemoteTech in general. There's going to be some episodes where we're just setting up satellite networks, just trying to make sure that we can maintain connections to places. I love this. There's a lot of realism mods that I have kind of included. I'm not using Kerbalism. That's something that I just don't feel accustomed to enough to include here. But I am using TAC Life support, so Kerbals will need life support, oxygen, food, water, all that, or they will die. So no congratulations on your lunar colony. If Jeb gets stranded on the moon, we gotta figure out some way of either getting him back or sending him food supplies. Otherwise, we will not have a Jeb anymore. And as you saw in the beginning, we changed the options so that way dead Kerbals stay dead. So it was about this time that I realized that I am not going to be making it to orbit. I didn't. The Bumblebee is just not powerful enough. And so, because it had to do some of its burn in the atmosphere, and it's the Terrier engine, so it's not very efficient in the atmosphere. So by the time it's reached, its apoapsis, half of its fuel is gone, and so it doesn't have enough to make it. So this thing's coming down. Like I said, failures will be tolerated, appreciated, demonstrated, because I think you learn a lot from failures. I think when I started playing this game, I learned a lot through tutorials, but I think I learned just as much through people's Let's Plays and career modes, just seeing them work through problems and figure out how to solve them using rocketry. And it's right about here that I noticed that we're about to land in the poles, which I think is kind of interesting. It's kind of fun. First episode, we get to see the North Pole. So all my communications burn off right there, and I'm expecting this to explode any time now, but then suddenly the flames go, and so I'm like, okay, well, it's just going to impact into the ice shelf and make a nice little explosion with that pretty little sunset, and then I slow down time, just let it come through, and then lo and behold, I have most of my piece back. So I felt that was a good sign for our program. So I need to upgrade the VAB, but I don't have enough funds to do that. So I'm going to come in here and try to take some stuff to kind of remedy that situation, either through advances. So I'm just looking right now to see what gives the most money in an advance. As well as to see if I can do them, but mostly for the money. I take a tourist contract. Tourism contracts are probably going to be a big part of how we create our funds. Right here, I'm looking on the map to see where those contracts. I'm also deleting some pieces up there from the North Pole, but to see where those contracts are, to see which ones I want to take, and I see that these two are relatively close. So I go ahead and take one of them, and then I realize I have maxed out my contracts. So I need to work on that before I before I take the other one for that zone that's right there to the east. So now I'm going to work on the tourist contract because I feel like that'll be the most bang for my buck at the moment. So I make this little tower monstrosity. Technically, it's powered by a probe because I don't think those lander cans have command capabilities. So I go ahead and throw Jeb in there, and then the 4 tourists. It's called the Tourist Trap V1. And this one is meant to go underwater, at least 1 meter underwater for 5 minutes. So I go ahead and launch it, and then I get this notification saying that life support has run out. Oxygen, water, and food is now depleted. And so I can't have my first mission end with a bunch of Kerbals drowning and dying. So I have to bring it back and add some life support. But of course I don't have any life support because I haven't unlocked that in the science tree yet. So now what I'm doing is just some quick... a little bit cheaty. It's not cheaty because it's exactly how you play the game, but just some quick science to get us the life support that we need. So I just throw on 2 of each experiment, as you see in the service bay. 2 Science Juniors, I name it the Flea. And then I go ahead and I bring this into the runway, and I send it to the island runway, and just grab all the experiments. And it's cheaty because, like, I literally just built a rocket, made some experiments, and ran everything. And I do it here too. So it feels like I'm not really working for it, but honestly, these biomes need to get the science experiments done sometime, and what better time than now? So I did 2 so I could go ahead and take off and then land again in the in a new biome. So I was aiming for the grasslands, but I lose control of the rocket very quickly. And so I'm just trying to, that direction right there, that's the direction I want to go. But it seems like the rocket has other plans. So I fight it for a while, and then eventually I run out of fuel. And so there's nothing else to do but to throw the chutes. I do the one experiment that I had that was nagging me, and I'm like, alright, well, I'll land directly right back onto the runway. So there's no new science to get done, but at least I landed. You know, I recovered everything except for the price of the engine, so I'll call that a win. And I got enough science to unlock the life support by 1 point. It was 90 science, and I had 91. So while I went, so I go ahead and bring up the tourist trap again and just throw on some life support, and I have 61 days, so I'll have plenty. Jeb goes ahead and does a crew report, and then EVAs, and does EVA report, grabs that, because of course every mission will always have science at its heart. Yeah, so it's just kind of a standard takeoff. I got 2 swivel engines, so I don't worry about being able to control it very much. I know that these will do pretty well, and I just need to get it over there to the water. I just want to make sure that I don't flip, and of course I flip. Because these wings don't have very good control surfaces. They're very early on, very basic wings. This is a very awkward shaped rocket, so it's going to have problems control and flight. Early KSP is very much uncontrolled rockets, but it's good because that kind of fight for control that you get teaches you to be a better pilot, I think. So it's all a learning experience. I had the side boosters on decouplers, but I decided to change the staging so that way they would stay on, because I need to sink below the surface. So I go ahead and drop down. The thing is I don't exactly know how to sink below the surface. I figured just having some rocket fuel left in your boosters and just carefully landing down would do it, but it doesn't. So this mission is going to be a wash. I'm going to have to recover them and try again, and I'm going to learn how to make it submerge. But that is the end of today's episode. If you liked it, please give me a like, and if you didn't, then maybe come back and see if I can do a little better next time. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.